Once long ago, at the edge of a shady forest, there lived a beautiful young girl named Marie with her mother and Marie's lazy sister. It was true. It seemed that Marie did all the work around the house. Why, she swept out the front porch, and she hung up the laundry, and she weeded the garden, and she folded the towels, and she washed the dishes. And it seemed to her that her lazy sister never even lifted one finger to help poor Marie at all. Yes, well, one day, Marie and her mother and her sister were standing in the kitchen. And her mother looked at Marie and said, "Daughter, I want you to go out into the garden and I want you to pick me some chicory." A chicory is a plant with leaves. And if you dry the leaves, sometimes you can grind them up and mix them with coffee. And it makes the coffee taste smoother, at least for folks down south. And so Marie said, "Yes, mother, I'll go." And so she walked out into the vegetable garden. Now, I want you kids to make a picture in your mind of a vegetable garden, and I want you to see how many various vegetables you can name. Does anyone see the tomatoes? Yes, when we looked among the tomatoes, there was no chicory there. Does anyone see carrots? She looked among the carrots. There was none growing there. Does anyone see peppers? She looked among the peppers. There was none growing there. Did anybody say watermelon? She looked among the watermelons, but there was no chicory there. She looked among the lettuce, but there wasn't any there either. In fact, Marie looked all across the garden, but no matter where she looked, there was no chicory anywhere. So, she opened up the garden gate. She stepped into the forest. She wasn't supposed to be in the forest, but she wanted some chicory. She looked among the mosses, but there was no chicory there. And she looked among the old leaves, but there was none hiding in there. And she looked among the old sticks. She looked among the rocks. And she looked among the mushrooms, but no matter where she looked, there was no chicory growing anywhere. But she wandered further and further and further into the forest until she was further into the forest than ever she had been before. And she realized she was a bit lost. But that was when she saw up ahead some light between the trees. Very happy about that, she ran toward the light between the trees, and it wasn't long before she found herself standing in the bright sunshine at the edge of the forest. It was a meadow, green grass, and the meadow rose up into a big, tall, gentle hill, and at the very top of the big, tall, gentle hill, she saw something. And Marie stopped and asked herself, "What is that?" From where she could see, it was huge, it was round, and it was white. And she said, "What is that?" Well, Marie was a curious girl, and so she just walked right up the tall hill until she got to the top. And do you know what she found growing there? A gigantic cauliflower. Cauliflower. It's a vegetable. It's the cousin of the broccoli. It's round and it's bumpy and it's white. Usually it's only about so big, but this one was gigantic. And so she said to herself, "Well, if I can't find any chicory for Mother, I'll bring her this giant cauliflower." And so she got her foot underneath it and she tried to lift it, but it wouldn't lift. She got her fingers in the top of it and she tried to pull it out, but it wouldn't pull. Now she got her shoulder against it and she started to shove, but it wouldn't budge. Well, finally, she got her foot underneath it, her fingers on the top of it, and her shoulder against it with all her strength. And up came the a cauliflower, and it rolled on its back. However, where its roots had been in the earth, there was now an opening going down into the darkness. She walked to the edge of it. It looked to be a well or a cave, but it went straight down. And then, to her astonishment, she saw the top of a ladder. Well, she was not only curious, Marie was courageous. And so she said, I wonder who's down there. And so she put her feet upon the ladder and down she began to climb. Now, the ladder was incredibly long, it seemed, before the further down she climbed, why, the smaller the circle of blue sky that had been right around her head grew until it grew tinier and tinier. She looked down, it was just dark down there. She just kept on climbing until that circle of blue light had almost flickered out. And that was when she saw light shining at the bottom of the ladder. Excited, she slipped down the last few rungs, and her feet hit what she discovered was soft grass. And she looked around, and it was as bright as day down here, so far beneath the earth. And she looked across the grass, and that was when she saw a little house. At first, she thought they were children, for there were little figures running around the house being very busy. They were dressed, as far as she could see, like little boys and little girls, but as she got closer, she realized to her amazement they were not children, they were kittens, and they were working. Some of them were sweeping out the front porch. Some of them were hanging up the laundry. Some of them were setting the table for lunch. Some were sweeping out the front. Some of them were folding the towels. And as she got closer, she realized they were singing. And since you know the words, this is the song. Into the house, and they all crowded around her feet. She scratched them behind the ears and said, "Hello, little kittens." And she looked around and she saw that there was a big long table covered with food. They were about to have their lunch. And they all sat on the bench next to one another, looking quite happy. Well, she realized that she hadn't exactly been invited. She was an unexpected guest. And they might not have made an extra portion for her, so she sat at the end of the table and she ate just a little bit. And then afterwards, she helped them wash the dishes. She helped them sweep out the front porch. She helped them hang up the laundry. She helped them weed the garden. And as she did, she found she was having so much fun, she joined in their song, which made it louder than before. Dressed in a velvet gown, and she was as tall as Marie. And the mother cat looked around at all the happy kittens and then looked at Marie and said, well, 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 you've been very kind to my babies. Lovely on the inside will become lovely on the outside. Follow me. The mother cat led Marie to a door and opened it up. And there, hanging, were thousands of beautiful gowns, the sort of princess might wear to a ball. Choose one, put one on. Well, Marie shook her head, but the mother cat insisted, and so she put on one of the gowns. Into another door the mother cat led her, and there were beautiful slippers with gems sewn upon the toes with golden thread, and the mother cat chose a pair, and Marie put them on. And then into a third door the mother cat led her. They were beautiful handkerchiefs made of silk, with the birds of the sky and the flowers of the fields painted upon them. And Marie wrapped one around her neck, and the mother cat walked her to the bottom of the ladder. Marie thought the gifts were over, but the mother cat said, "Now when you get to the top of the ladder, there'll be a wall with holes in it like Swiss cheese. Push your fingers into the holes, pull them out, look up, you'll have more gifts you deserve." Oh, Marie did not know what to say other than thank you, which she said quite a few times, and she began to climb. But since the kittens were further and further away, and were still singing, when they sang, it sounded as if they were whispering. Well, soon there she was on top of the hill. There was the giant cauliflower upon its back, but where there had not been one before was a wall with holes in it like Swiss cheese. Well, Marie pushed her fingers into the holes, and she pulled them out, and she looked up, and her fingers were covered with glittering beautiful rings. And then out of the sky fell a star, but it grew smaller and smaller and cooler and slower until it stopped right in front of her. It turned into a little diamond and fell into her palm. Home she ran. She ran right across the garden, right into the kitchen, and she stood in front of her mother and her sister and said, "Mother, mother, look, look." Her mother couldn't believe the beautiful clothes and asked, "Marie, where did you get those things?" "Well, the mother cat in the woods with this big hill and the cauliflower in the wall, and mother, look." Well, she told her mother and her sister all about what had happened. Now, it stands to reason, doesn't it, that if you were Marie's mother, you'd want the lazy sister to have clothes as lovely as those. So her mother turned to her sister and said, "Daughter, I want you to go and bring back gifts like your sister did." Now, Marie's lazy sister, she really didn't like to do anything if she could help it. And so she said, "Oh, mother, I don't want to go, mother." "What?" "Mother, I don't want to go." "But you've got to go." "Mother, I don't like cats, pew." "Mother, go." Well, she knew she'd get in trouble if she didn't, so she walked right out across the garden, slammed the gate, started walking down the forest path, saying to herself, "I don't believe I have to do this. Oh, this is so far." She got to the edge of the field, and she saw the cauliflower way up on top of the hill and said, "Oh, now I have to walk all the way up there." She made herself walk all the way up there, and there she looked at the ladder going down into the hole in the ground and said, "Oh, now I have to climb all the way down there." And so down she climbed, grumbling the whole way. And yes, it grew darker and darker, but then it grew lighter and lighter, and she heard something coming up from below. Just the most wonderful sound. Jumped off the bottom of the ladder. There were the kittens. Some of them were sweeping out the front porch. Some of them were setting the table for supper. And she walked right in. There was all the delicious food upon the table. And Marie's lazy sister, she was hungry from all that climbing. And so she sat down, and the kittens all sat down next to her. But she just looked at them and said, "Move over." And she pushed them all off the end of the bench, and they fell in a furry little pile onto the floor. And then she ate all the food she could find as quickly as possible, and stood up and looked at them all and asked, "Now where are my things?" Little tears began to form in the kitten's eyes, and they sang their song, just sang it a little differently. And in walked the mother cat. She saw all the tears in the eyes of her kittens. And she turned and saw Marie's lazy sister standing there. And Mother Cat said, "Well, well, well. You've been very unkind to my babies. Mean on the inside. You'll become mean on the outside. Follow me." The very same door where she led Marie, she led her sister. But instead of all the lovely gowns, there was simply one old wool skirt, and she had to put it on, and it itched. And instead of all the lovely slippers, there was one old pair of boots, and she had to tug them on, and they scrunched her toes. And instead of the lovely handkerchiefs, there was just one old scarf, and she had to wrap it around her neck, and it did not feel particularly clean. And the mother cat took her to the bottom of the ladder. "Now when you get to the top of the ladder, there'll be a wall with holes in it like Swiss cheese. Push your fingers into the holes, pull them out, look up, you'll have more gifts you deserve. Well, at least I'll get my rings." So she climbed, and it wasn't long before there she stood on top of the hill. There was the giant cauliflower, and where there had not been one before, however, was a wall with holes in it, just like Swiss cheese. And she wanted those rings, and so she just shoved her fingers into the holes and pulled them out. She looked up. But all she had on her fingers were 3 very unhappy-looking earthworms. She threw them away, and then out of the sky came a pie, and it landed right on her nose. And so home through the forest she ran, crying, "Mother, mother, mother, mother." Now, for the rest of your lives, you kids, you're going to be going and visiting people. And it doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy. Ask yourself, which of these 2 people I would rather be like? Because you never know what gifts people might have for you, depending upon how you treat them. Oh, and if you're really lucky, you might find a giant cauliflower and a little world beneath it. And if you're really lucky, there'll be kittens, and they'll be clapping in rhythm.